The Olympics, a time and place where the nations of the world set aside their differences to enjoy friendly competition and sports events. This image, however, took time to develop. Years of conflict shaped the Olympics into the tradition it is today. This can be seen in the Munich Olympics of 1972, where the tragedy of a terrorist attack carried out during the Olympics by a Palestinian terrorist group led to later triumph of improved counterterrorism and a new meaning of overcoming placed on the Olympics.
Conflict between the Israel and Palestine people started long before the Munich Olympics. It was most prominent in 1948 with the Nakba Exodus, when thousands of Palestinian people were forced to move from their lands by the group of Zionists who had control of Israel at the time. Israel aimed to become an official state and to be recognized by the United Nations, and they saw Palestine as the new land of the Jews, forcing out those not a part of their nation. The Arab people fled their homes in response to Israeli army aggression, and many starved and died as a result. This fueled tension between the two nations as Israel took more land and expanded westward, increasing the number of Palestinian refugees. On May 14, 1948, U.S. President Harry S. Truman recognized the establishment of the State of Israel. The Arab-Israeli War of 1948 immediately followed as 5 Arab nations led an invasion of former Palestinian Mandate in protest to the decision made by the United Nations General Assembly to divide the land into Jewish and Arab states. The Arab people saw the division as favorable to the Jews, and fighting intensified as a result. The war was very costly with many casualties, and although the war technically ended in 1949, tension can be seen in the 21st century.
In 1949, Munich, Germany was still recovering from the constant Allied bombings that occurred during World War II. Buildings were in ruins, and it took a long time for the people and the government to rebuild and rehabilitate the city. To save the face of Germany, the Munich government, as well as the National Olympic Committee, decided to hold the 1972 Summer Olympic Games in Munich. The Olympics then became an opportunity for Munich to redeem itself after being known as the city where Hitler planned the Holocaust.
Terrorism was prevalent even before the time of the Munich Olympics. The terrorism that occurred at the Olympics stood out from other attacks because it was directed at a group of people instead of one individual, such as a government figure. The Black September terrorist group strove to make a statement about their anger towards the action of the State of Israel. To them, the State of Israel being recognized and included in the Olympics after committing the injustices against the Arab people in previous history was an outrage. The Olympics was a worldwide stage for the terrorist group to show their anger. Before the Olympic Games, an Israeli terrorist group had attacked and killed Arab people in multiple cities, so for the Black September group, the attack at the Olympics was revenge. The Black September group was first formed as a breakaway military sector of the Fatah Palestinian organization with the goals of assassinating King Hussein, the King of Jordan, between the years 1952 and 1999. After coming together in 1971, the Black September group soon broke up in 1974, shortly after the Munich Massacre at the Olympics. At the time of the terrorist attack in Munich, the leaders of the organization included Latif Afif and Yusuf Nazal, with several other junior members to follow as supporters of the operation.
On September 5, 1972, at 4:30 a.m., 5 Black September members fit as athletes wearing all black sweatsuits climbed the fence surrounding the Olympic Village. Using stolen keys, the men entered 2 apartments, masked and armed with guns, where Israeli athletes were sleeping. 4 athletes, 2 team doctors, and the wrestling coach were able to escape, while the Palestinians took 11 other athletes hostage. At 9:30 a.m., members of the Black September terrorist group led by Latif Afif and Deputy Yusuf Nazal, with junior members, demanded safe passage out of Germany and the return of several Arabs who were imprisoned in Israel. After hours of negotiations, including the offer of exchanging German Foreign Minister Hans Dietrich Genscher for all of the hostages, the Arabs agreed to go to the NATO air base in Fürstenfeldbruck, Germany, where they would be given a plane to fly the group and their hostages to Cairo, Egypt. The helicopter landed on the base at 10:30 p.m., where the terrorists were met by a group of German sharpshooters. The sharpshooters, not prepared, had only expected 7 terrorists, not 10. At around 11 p.m., a terrorist grenade blew up one of the helicopters holding the Israeli athletes, killing them. The surviving athletes were shot to death by one of the surviving terrorists. It was announced on national television the next morning that they were all gone.
They have now said that there were 11 hostages. 2 were killed in their rooms yesterday morning. 9 were killed at the airport tonight. They're all gone.
"11 Israeli athletes had lost their lives in the span of those 2 days. Among the deceased were Israeli wrestling coach Moshe Weinberg, referee Yosef Gutfried, and weightlifter Yosef Romano, who were attacked and shot dead in the Olympic Village. Those killed at the base included sharpshooting coach Kahat Shor, track and field coach Amitzer Shapira, fencing master Andre Spitzer, weightlifting judge Yaakov Springer, weightlifters David Berger and Zaya Friedman, and wrestlers Elitzer Halfin and Mark Slavin, who was the youngest at 18 years old.
Immediately after the tragic deaths of the 11 Israeli athletes, Germany put a hold on the Olympic Games. On September 6, 1972, a memorial service was held in the stadium with all the visitors and athletes. It was announced after a meeting held by the International Olympics Committee that the Olympic Games would continue. There was much protest by family members and viewers in response, because they believed that with the deaths of the athletes, the Games should not continue as a form of respect. Some of the participating teams left in the middle of the Olympics, including teams from Egypt, Algeria, and the rest of the Israeli team. To many people, establishing an official memorial for the fallen Israeli athletes was a difficult process. Time and time again, the family members of the athletes brought the idea of a memorial up to the International Olympics Committee, only to be refused. The IOC argued that the memorial would not be appropriate for the Olympics. Even though there was a moment of silence for the victims of the 2005 London bombing terrorist attack at the 2012 Olympics, there was no time designated to recognize the fallen victims of the Munich Massacre in any Olympics previously. It was in the year 2014 that an official memorial was built in multiple locations to commemorate the tragedy. One of the memorials was a collaboration between organizations including the IOC and the Foundation for Global Sports Development, showing the faces with descriptions of the hostages who were killed during the massacre. This memorial is located under a hill of land in Munich, deemed the most appropriate location. Today, the memorial stands with a sculpture and a plaque in the Olympic Park. While the conflict between the Arabs and Israelis took a brief pause in the 1970s, the clash between the two groups continued today. A total of over 4,000 Arabs and Israelis have been killed since 1982.
After the Fürstenfeldbruck gunfight, the German government arrested the 3 surviving Black September gunmen and held them in a Munich prison for trial. The Israeli Defense Committee secretly authorized Mossad, the National Intelligence Agency of Israel, to track down and kill those responsible for planning the Munich massacre. The mission was known as Operation Wrath of God, or Bayonet. The bodies of the Palestinian attackers killed during the gun battle were brought to Libya and received heroes' funerals where they were buried with full military honors. In the United States, President Richard Nixon directed the U.S. Secretary of State to consult with other nations on the international security measures against terrorism, and both houses of the U.S. Congress unanimously voted for a resolution calling for world isolation of any nation encouraging terrorism. The Munich Olympics were meant to be the antidote to war and politics, but the result of the attack was also crucial in establishing new Olympic policy regarding security, making it the highest budgeted aspect of the present-day Games.
The tragedy of the terrorist attack and the lacking in proper handling of the situation by the German counterterrorism forces was met with the triumph of the families of the victims of the massacre after they were successful in having a memorial for the event approved and built. Once the Olympics continued after the massacre, athletes from many countries won medals in their own individual events, showing their national pride and bringing back the true intention of the Olympics. Legislation for improved counterterrorism has increased, moving the Olympics forward past its dark moments throughout history, further showing that tragedy in subtle ways brings triumph.